to all of you. Research is what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing. No research is ever quite complete. It's the glory of good bit of work that it opens the way for something still better. And this rapidly leads to its own eclipse. A very good afternoon to Honorable Speaker of the Day, Dr. Sourish Dasgupta, Professor Sumit Mittal, Principal MMICT and BM, faculty members, and all the research scholars present over here from India and abroad. On the behalf of our college, Maharishi Markandeshwar Institute of Computer Technology and Business Management, I, Ayushi, moderator of this session, welcomes you all in this International Research Orientation Program, Day 3. I hope you all are doing well and safe at your own place. I believe there is no deep difference what can be achieved by a biological brain and what can be achieved by a computer. It therefore follows the computer can, in theory, emulate human intelligence and exceed it. Stephen Hawking. Topic for the day program is RACS and AI powerful tool for the research. At the initial stage, research scholars face many difficulties while writing research papers like literature study, brainstorming, drafting, and exploring. So to overcome this difficulty, we have an effective tools for the today's session, that is RACS. RACS is one of the best tools. RACS was developed by researchers for the research communities at the Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communication Technology, India. RACS is an AI-powered online research assistant that helps academic researchers to boost up their productivity by adapting to their evolving subjective needs throughout their research life cycles. In other words, it helps in fast connecting the dots. The toughest parts of any research is neither in discovering the dots nor in storing the dots symmetrically, but rather in meaningfully connecting those dots. And that's exactly what RACS does smartly. So in the first 4 months, RACS has gathered more than 700 active researchers, mostly PhD students from the United States and India. Now, without taking your much precious time, I would likely to introduce you Speaker of the Day, Dr. Sourish Dasgupta. Dr. Sourish Dasgupta is the founder and CEO of RACS Labs. Dr. Sourish Dasgupta has been working on some really challenging and fun AI problems in the intersection zone of natural language processing, recommendation systems, and knowledge graphs for the last 15 years, dating back to his PhD days at the University of Kansas City, Missouri, United States of America. When he's not working on artificial intelligence problem, he would be busy learning and applying the art and science of business development at the startup RACS Labs. He always sneaks some time out, which he dedicates to culinary pursuit, history study, and of course, Tintin. Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communication Technology happens to be constant target of all the experiments that he conducts at RACS Labs. Making research fun has become his life mission. So, Professor Gupta, it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce you and having you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. I would like to hand over the session to you, sir. Please take over the session, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Ayushi, and thanks a lot, everyone, for coming over here. And I hope that everyone is very, very safe and healthy and taking very good care of themselves. So what I'm going to do today is, without taking too much time, I'm just going to go dig deep into the real deal. So let me just share my screen. And Ayushi, you can just let me know if the screen is visible. Okay, so let me just share my screen.
Yes, sir, sure.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. It's going to start. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So RACS, what happened was that let me give you a very, very brief story of how it all started. So back in 2006, when I was a PhD student, and I was pretty much in, uh, going through the same challenges and the same issues that a lot of PhD students, who are today, attending this session, are going through. And much of the difficulty was with literature survey and literature analysis. And the major problem initially, when I was in the initial stage of my research, back in University of Missouri, uh, was that I was not able to figure out what were the right research papers to read. That was the number one problem that I was figuring. I was finding a tough time with. The second problem that I was facing, when I was a PhD student, was that it was taking me a lot of time initially to even read and properly understand a paper, right? And still, during that understanding process, there was a lot of gap that was uh, still left to be figured out. And so the comprehension aspect of paper reading was a big challenge for me. But then later on, what happened was, because I was in a very good lab, my advisor was really, really good and took really good care of me. Uh, I had some really good seniors in my research lab, so I could kind of figure out what, the first problem, which is how to gather the right research papers and how to even understand that what are the good research papers out there. But something that I could never overcome even now, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people over here would, it's kind of like almost a human barrier, which is essentially the barrier of memory, which means that as I am finding more and more great papers to read, my reading list, my to-do list is actually piling up and up and up. And because I'm not quick enough to go through those papers very quickly, and the biggest problem is that the more I'm going through those papers, the more I am kind of forgetting the details of the papers that I read, let's say last month or 2 months ago or 3 months ago or even 1 year ago. And if you look at the entire PhD process, it's very important that you cannot just say that, okay, a paper, those bunch of papers that I read last year are of no use to me right now. It doesn't work that way, right? So the research is always about constantly comparing and contrasting, because it's all about finding the research gaps, thinking about those research gaps and what else can I do, how to improve on those research gaps, and so on and so forth. So it's essentially about quickly identifying the research gaps and how to fill those gaps, right? So that's how it all started. So when I came back to India after my PhD, and I started out my journey as a faculty at DIST, over there I was supervising my own PhD students, and I was talking to a lot of other PhD students, and I started discussing more and more about these issues with a lot of my colleagues, with professors from other universities, and I felt that, well, something really needs to be done about this. So I started looking out and figuring out, are there any other platform that would help me to do literature survey and literature analysis? And I felt that that part was completely missing. There were other kind of tools which I was using, and they were good for what they were supposed to be for. But I found that this space of literature survey and analysis is something that's completely missing. So then I decided that, hey, let me build something for myself. So that's how it all started. I never thought that it would turn out to be a product and a startup, but this is how I started this journey. So that's how it started, very much in the campus of the DIST. So that's the quick background story of how RACS got started. So RA as in research assistant. So that's the thing. So the superhero, as you can see in this picture, is actually you. So you are the superhero, and RACS is kind of like the Jarvis. That's what we aim to make RACS. If anybody over here have watched the movie Iron Man, then they would know what Jarvis is. So RACS is kind of like the little personal secretary that would help you to, bring more and more power to you as a superhero being the researcher, right? So it's not supposed to replace the researcher. So that's one thing that we need to understand here. Okay, so I am very, very thankful to Maharishi Markandeshwar University to give me this opportunity. So today we are going to probe into all the different aspects and facets of literature analysis. What do I mean by that, and what are the different ways in which you can do literature analysis using the tool RACS, right? So so to begin with, whatever is our career goal, whether we are trying to go for academia or whether we are trying to go for corporate research, whatever is our career goal, it's always comes down to this constant fight against volume, time, and memory, right? So just to give you an example, if you only look at science, okay, and by science I'm not including technology. So only science, there are like on an average 1.8 million articles published every year. So that itself will give you an idea of how much is the velocity and the volume that we are talking about. And kind of like 90% of these papers are never cited. So that's the stat. And a major reason why 90% of those papers are never cited, because people don't really have the time. They're constantly overwhelmed with this volume, and also they don't have the time to read everything, right? So that's one of the major reason why. One of the major reason. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that's one of the major reason why papers don't get cited. I give you a very interesting example. I intentionally took up a particular research topic, which is very, very niche, which is not really pursued by a lot of researchers. And the topic is Avar cemeteries. So Avars are this Central Asian medieval warrior ethnicity, Turkic ethnicity that used to be there in Central Europe. And their tombs, their cemetery used to be like the stone tombs, as you can see in this picture, if that's visible. So what I did was I simply did a Google Scholar, and I felt that, well, there wouldn't be much around Avar cemetery because it's so niche. So then what I found out was something amazing. Like just 2019 till now, there are more than 300 articles only on Avar cemetery, specifically on cemetery of Avars, right? And there are in total 4.5 thousand articles on this topic. So even a very, very niche, extremely niche topic will have so much of articles, so much of publications out there, so much of stuff to be read. So that's where that's the velocity and that's the volume that we are talking about right now. Now the problem is that if this is kind of the stat that we got through our own survey and from other different sources, that on an average, at least 72% or more than 72% of the newly published papers never even get into your collection or folder, the folder that you're maintaining for just dumping the papers. So more than 72% of the newly published papers never even get into your folder. So that's one level at which you are losing out on a lot of research opportunity, because if you're not reading those those 72% papers, it means that you are losing out on a lot of opportunity out there in terms of research gaps, right? Then comes the next level, and see this, roughly 64% researchers end up not even touching that minimum 70% of that folder. So it seems to be that most of the researchers are not even able to read properly or even touch the papers that are getting piled up. So now you can see that even the papers that are there in your folder, not everything gets read, and that's a major problem. And that's problem is the reason for that is because of time. Now, if you are not even able to read the papers that you're collecting, that's again the second level of opportunity loss, right? Then comes the third level of opportunity loss, which is that roughly 70% of the people are not even able to finish or properly reading one paper a week. So which means so much of other things that you're doing, you are constantly battling against time. So essentially that's another layer or another level at which we as researchers, we are missing out on the opportunity, because we don't really have the time to go through all the papers that we are supposed to read in our collection. And then finally, majority of the roughly 60% of the researchers frequently forget. We all forget, and most of us forget, but 60% of the researchers, that what we figured out, frequently forget what they read before. Like they are not able to remember exactly what they have read before, or if they're reading something right now, how that connects with what they have already read, let's say 2 months ago or 5 months ago or 1 year ago, right? So that's, and if that is happening, if you're forgetting the details, then you're not able to connect and compare and contrast properly and position everything in a nice way. So again, that's a research opportunity loss. And that might result in multiple different things, including the fact that your papers keep getting rejected, right? Because you have not done enough thorough literature survey, literature analysis, and many times the reviews might come up like this, that, well, it's not original enough, or there's nothing significant or nothing novel in what you're proposing. It's already been done, right? So that can always happen. So connecting the dots is everything in research, and is quite stressful and time consuming. So what do we mean by, or what do I mean by connecting the dots, and what exactly RACS does to you, and how does RACS help you in connecting the dots? So there are 3 levels at which connecting the dot happens, and 3 levels where RACS can help you as a personal secretary, so to say, in connecting the dots. The first level of connecting the dot is connecting research information together. Like, let's say that you are reading a paper and you want to quickly compare and contrast the facts and arguments. Because if you are not able to quickly compare the facts and arguments together with what you're reading, with what you have already read before, you won't be able to quickly identify the research gaps. And if you're not able to quickly identify the research gaps, you won't be able to form your own key insights. And if you're not able to form your own key insights, you won't be able to contribute much, right? So it all comes down to quick comparison, quick contrasting of facts and arguments, right? But the major problem over there is that the more we read in details papers, the more we forget. So it's essentially a battle against memory. So not just time, but a battle against our own memory retention capacity. And we all forget, that's how we are. So that's the major problem. And that's where I will show you how RACS can actually help you wonderfully. The second connecting the dot is connecting the research updates that out there that's not in your folder. So stuffs that are not inside your universe, but are outside your universe. And can I bring those stuffs at the right time, just at the time when you need them the most? So can I connect whatever is happening outside, all the research updates, all the research papers that are coming up every now and then, and connect that with your current point of attention? And that is currently not there anywhere else. And that is where the second uniqueness of RACS is, that it actually looks into your current point of attention. And I will elaborate on that. I'll show you how it does that. And then the third thing, which is another unique aspect of RACS, is that whenever you are doing literature review, it's not just reading. You're not just reading the paper. You are also doing a lot of highlighting, a lot of note-taking. And while you are doing that, you might come up with new ideas, right? And you might have your own little ideas coming up all the time. And while you are putting them down, jotting them, those new ideas as a draft or as a working note, you might want to discuss it further with your teammate, with your supervisor, with your lab mates, or with other collaborators, or with anybody who is kind of working in your own area. So you might want to form a study circle, so to say, and kind of like discuss whatever you are reading and analyzing right now. And then while you are doing all of these things, you might want to explore more articles or more papers that are related to your current point of focus, which is what you are currently discussing what you're currently, noting down, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of was missing when I looked into other platforms, and I felt that this is something that needs to be done. And that's what Rax does for you, kind of like connects all these interrelated research activities together in one coherent workflow, right? So just to tell you that you are not alone in terms of having all these issues. If you are having all these issues, I just looked up Quora last year, and I saw that there are like more than 4.8 million people on Quora who are just following questions on literature, all the different issues of literature survey and literature analysis. So that's how global and how intense these issues are. So essentially, if anyone of you are having these issues, so don't think that you are an outlier. This is exactly what happens everywhere, whether it is MIT or whether it is any other place, right? So basically, this is the crux. Like, we have so much to read, but we have so less time. And that brings us to this issue of our stress level is always up as we are doing literature survey analysis, and our productivity can actually go up a lot. Like, there's a lot of scope of improvement when it comes to the productivity. So today what we are going to do is we are going to split the entire discussion into two parts. The part one would be on the process of knowledge acquisition, which is literature and literature survey, where you would be acquiring a lot of knowledge. And the second part would be about knowledge creation. So these two processes are tightly connected with each other. Like, when you acquire more knowledge, and that's how you come up with new ideas, and that's how you create new knowledge. And as you're creating new knowledge, you would need more knowledge. You would need to acquire more knowledge so that you can keep building on top of that, right? So it's kind of like a cyclical process, like one leads to the other and the other triggers the first one, right? So look at it. So they are not independent processes, so to say. So let's first look into, handling the paper itself, the knowledge acquisition part, which is the literature review or the literature survey part, right? So why do we read or analyze? I like this word analyze more better than read, because reading can be something which is very superficial. You read a newspaper when you wake up in the morning, but reading a paper, essentially what you do when you say you read a paper, you are actually critically examining or analyzing the paper. That's what you are doing. Now, there can be multiple reasons why you read papers. One can be that you just want to know what other people in your community are thinking, how they are thinking about the problem that you're working on, or you might want to learn new concepts and techniques, or you might want to compare your own contribution, your own idea, your own approach with what other people have done, other people's approach. That may be another reason. Or you might want to provide really rigorous citation while you are, let's say, about to submit a paper, or while you're writing up your thesis, or while you are helping your supervisor in writing a grant proposal, and so on and so forth, right? Or it can be all of these above. So these can be the reasons why you might read paper, but I want to emphasize that the major reason why you should actually be reading a paper, and that too, a good paper, when you're reading a good paper, is that every good paper that you're reading is an immense opportunity for research, because that's where you would actually find the real research gap, and where you can actually contribute in a very significant manner, right? So you need to stay absolutely focused, when you're reading a very good paper. And all the other reasons, they are important, no doubt about that, like these 4 reasons, but they are essentially byproducts. So I have seen a lot of times what students do is that they always say that, okay, enough paper reading and now let's do some research. That's not how it should work. You should never do that, because you see that literature review or literature survey is a constant process, in the sense that at every stage of research, you will be needing to do literature review for different purposes, depending upon which stage of research you are in, right? So always make sure that this is not the right approach, that you first read papers and you forget about reading paper and you just do research. That's not how you can do very good research, right? So I would first, now the format in which I would want to take you through is I will put up a particular point for you to think on, and then I will go to racks, and then I'll show you how you can do all these things, right? So the first thing that you might come across is that there are hundreds of papers in your collection. You know, as you're dumping all the papers that you're getting, all the interesting papers or the important papers that either your supervisor is giving you or you're getting from all different sources, and you keep dumping them, in your folder, and they grow. Your to-do list keeps growing, but then it can keep growing to 50 papers, 100 papers, or hundreds of papers, right? So then a lot of times you need to reprioritize. You need to keep prioritizing what are the papers that you really need to read next, right? So as an example, you're reading this one paper, and then you're reading let's say, a particular argument of the paper, and then you might want to know, are there other papers in my to-do list that are related to this one particular argument, so that I know that this is, my next paper should be this paper, which is related to this particular argument. So I'll show you how you can actually solve this problem, how you can prioritize your reading list inside racks. So for those people who are yet to know where racks is, the website is rackster.io. You just type in rackster.io on any standard or any web browser, and you come to this landing page. And it's a very pretty simple sign up process. You can sign up either by putting just your email over here and you can get started, or you can sign up from here. The login process is also very simple. You just click on login and you come to your research project page. Now this research project page is actually your universe, which means, as you can see, that I have so many different research projects going on right now. Some are interrelated, some are quite different than each other. Some I have already done way back, long back, and so on and so forth, right? And I can also create new research projects. So as an example, let's say that I create a project. So this is a new project, and after creating a new project, research project, what I can do is if I am doing it collaboratively, then I can invite my teammates or my collaborators by putting the email over here, and something like this. And I can put multiple such emails, and I can invite my collaborators over here. As you can see, this is one particular research project that we are currently working on, and I have multiple different collaborators on this project. So I will take you inside one of these projects, this particular project. So you can just click on this project, and then what happens is, inside that particular project, you will see that the project, on the left hand side, you will see that the project is structured in racks in this way. So you first start with your reading list. So literature would be your reading list. So that's your reading list, right? And that may contain all the papers that you've already read before, or the papers that you are currently reading right now, or the papers that are in your to-do list. And you can upload papers inside racks, because by default it will be empty, right? Because you will have empty. So you can actually upload papers from your computer, your folder. You can choose a whole folder and you can upload all the papers, or you can choose specific papers and you can upload that over here. Or you can also upload from PDF URLs, or if you are using some sort of a reference manager for organizing your papers and citation purposes, then you can also choose the reference file over there in the reference manager and upload that. Or if you are more used to putting your papers on Google Drive, you can also import from Google Drive, right? So these are the 4 different ways in which you can upload your reading list. And then you have the drafts, which are kind of your working notes, and I'm going to talk about that later on. These drafts are essentially like when you are doing literature survey, you will come up with all sorts of new ideas, crazy ideas, new ways of doing research, or maybe you want to modify, go back to a particular approach, your own approach, which you were kind of designing, and you want to modify something, or you want to modify the research question that you have, or the research objective that you have. And so this is like, while you are doing a lot of literature survey, you will be constantly revising your own ideas, and this is where you would actually do that thing. This is drafts. And then you have suggestions. I will show you what suggestions are, but just briefly, Racks looks into each and every single little thing that you do inside Racks. And then based on that, it knows what exactly is bothering you right now, what exactly is interesting to you right now, and then it suggests with different papers accordingly. Repository, I'll come to that, and collaborators also, I'll come to that, what that is. So now let's look into this problem. Let's go back to this problem, which is how do you prioritize? Now imagine that I have all these papers. And you see, this is a long list. It's a really long list. And now I really need to, I don't know, like I have so many papers to read, and I really don't know which one to read first now or which one to read next. One way to figure out very, very quickly is through this very new feature that we came up. This is a very AI-based feature that we came up with. It's called Key Insights. So for every paper that you upload, Racks automatically reads that entire paper for you. And what it does is that if you click on Key Insights over here, as you can see, there's a kind of like a button. And if you click on Key Insights over here, Racks in a few seconds generates or kind of like bucketizes the entire paper into its corresponding aspects. Like, what is the research goal? What is the scope of the research goal? What are the assumptions made in the paper? What, in terms of approach, what's the originality claimed by the authors? What's the methodology used? What were the comparisons by the authors? And then in terms of research outcome, how the evaluation has been set up? What was the goal of the evaluation? What was the method taken for evaluation purposes? What was the research data? What kind of research data was used, or how it was used, and so on. And observations, which means what was the observation of the authors. And then was there anything which is speculative? Is the authors are not sure about, kind of like guessing about, and what were they? And then finally, this is something interesting. Are there any areas in which you can start exploring, any open areas, which the authors left it open. The authors did not feel that they are very important to solve, but could not solve because of the scope or the limitation of this paper, right? So essentially for every paper, Racks actually scans through the entire paper and then buckets the different parts of the paper and puts it under the corresponding, so to say, bucket, sort of. So now what happens? Let's say that I am a researcher and I have hundreds of paper in my to-do list, and I'm not able to figure out which one to read. So what I can do is, if I am more interested in reading based upon the originality of the paper, I would simply click on originality over here. And I would just quickly read the originality and then make a decision whether I want to read this paper or not. Or you might want to figure out that, no, I would want to look into the paper based upon the observations made. So I will just click on observation, and then I'll just look into the observations made by the paper, and then I'll take a decision, right? Somebody might want to say that, no, I just want to look into the possible research opportunity, and based on that, I might want to figure out whether I might want to read the paper, right? So you see that there are a lot of different reasons why one would want to decide, how one would want to rather decide how they would want to read a paper. So the problem with reading abstracts, now you might want to tell me that, well, there are a lot of, I decide by reading an abstract. I used to do that too. But then the problem with abstract is I cannot go deep into the specific aspects of the paper and then decide, because abstract is too short. It wouldn't contain all this information that's there inside the paper, which will help you to take a much better decision about whether you want to read the paper or not. Because specific aspects of the methodology is not detailed out in an abstract, or comparisons and adaptations, or maybe observations are not detailed out in an abstract. And that is exactly what you might want to look at when you might want to figure out whether you want to read a paper or not. So that's a very good way in which you can very quickly decide or reprioritize which papers to read and which papers not to read. So that's one way, right? That's one feature that can help you, which is key insights, as you can see over here. The other feature that can help you in doing that is when you click on double click and open the paper. Now, as you open the paper, you will enter inside the reading room of racks. Okay, so this is the reading room of racks. So as you open the paper, racks will automatically give you some related papers that are related to this particular paper as a whole. And as you read the paper, you might want to figure, let's say that you're reading the paper and you are reading the second page, and you're reading the third page, and suddenly you might want to, you feel like, hey, you know what, like, I might want to understand whether there are other papers in my to-do list which are related to this entire approach overview. So what I do is I can select this entire approach section, and the moment I select it, this thing pops up, which is we call it context menu. And then what you can do, you can compare this entire section, this entire selected section, and whatever is the key idea, the key narrative, the key idea of this section, you can compare that with all the other papers across all the other projects by clicking that. So from your collection, all these papers have come up right now. As you can see, these 3 papers have come up. And not just the papers, but also that particular section that sort of is related to this section that I just selected, right? So that came up, right? I can read more of that to figure out whether I really want to, whether this is, to what extent this is related. And if I think that this is related, I can connect over here with this button. The moment I connect it, what happens is that it gets connected to this entire section. And then what I can do, I can put some notes over there. I can say that this is the similarity, or this is the dissimilarity. And I can also say that this is the to-do. To-do is to be read, or rather to be read. This is the paper that I want to read further next after I am done with this paper. So this is another way, and you can press enter. So this is another way in which you can decide on the fly, which means while you're reading a paper, while you're reading a particular section of the paper, you can decide on the fly which papers would be the next paper to read. Because you see, the decision of what to read next is very much dependent upon what you're reading now, right? So if you're more interested in this section right now, you might want to fetch out all the other papers that are related to this section. And then you might want to put a flag saying that these are the next papers that I might want to read. And later on, you can come back to this paper and you can also, click on this purple zone, and you can actually, uh, or this connect button, and you can actually uh, get back to those papers that you connected with this section. So it's kind of what you're doing is you are threading up two different papers, or rather two different sections of the paper that are there in your collection, and you are just threading them up together. And you are not just threading them, you're also giving some notes on that association. You're putting your own remarks, your own comments, and your own notes on that particular association. The other advantage of this thing is memory. You see, interestingly, you do not have to remember anything with this particular feature. You know why? Because it will also pull up all those papers that you have already read before, long time back, maybe a year ago, or maybe 5 years ago, or something, or even 5 months ago, 2 months ago. Even those papers that are not really related to this particular project. As you can see, this project was research paper summarizer. But this paper that came out was from research paper information extraction, which I did long time back, right? And it will pull up all those papers from other projects that where important stuffs might be there, which you might have forgotten also, right? So these are that's the beauty, and you really don't have to remember the details of what you have already read before. You just select that particular section, and this will pop up. You just click on it, and Rax will do it for you. Rax remembers all those things that you've already done before, and you just click on it. And if there is nothing out there, Rax is not going to give you anything. Just like this, there was nothing in this particular section, so Rax just says that there is nothing related to this particular section which you read before, so you don't have to worry about it, right? So that is how it would work. Okay. So if you have any questions so far, maybe I can take some questions. Otherwise, I can continue with the other things. Or should I be taking the questions at the end?
So you can take the question at the end, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the second point is basically connecting research materials with current research activities, right? Which means that, what happens usually is that we all, I guess a lot of people are using Google Scholar and other kind of publisher portals where you are finding research articles. And many times we put alerts also, where what happens with alerts is that the alerts would help us in getting a lot of emails. They would send us emails and other kind of notifications for all the papers that are coming up, which are supposedly related to what we are working, right? But the problem with that is that you see that a lot of times the scholarly articles are roughly related to what we are working on, but it's not exactly useful to me at this moment, which means that it's not just good enough. Like, let's say that I'm working in artificial intelligence, or more specifically, as she mentioned, I'm working in knowledge graphs. Now, there are tons and tons of papers on knowledge graphs that keeps coming up, right, from all these different portals, publisher portals. I will not be interested in everything right now. I'm not saying that they are not relevant, but what I'm saying is that they are not useful to me right now, because right now what I want is a particularly specific aspect of the research that I'm doing. So not anything and everything related to knowledge graph will be useful to me right now. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people actually face that issue, that the emails that keep coming to you, you can't say they are unrelated, but at the same time, you can't say that they are useful to you right now at this moment, which means that if they come to you, you're not going to leave everything and then start reading that paper. because it doesn't really matter to you right now, right? So what we did in Racks is, let me go back and I'll show you what you can do in Racks. Let's say that you're reading the same paper and right now you're focusing on this particular paragraph. And that's exactly what is your truth right now, because that is what that is bothering you. And let's say that you want to read more papers, more research papers related to this particular section only this particular section. So the idea only related to the idea which is there in this particular section, right? So what you can do is you can select again this same section. Again, this pop-up comes up. But right now, earlier we clicked on this, but right now there is something called explore related. And then over there, you have research articles, you have other resources, and within other resources, if you click on other resources, you will find that you have the entire Wikipedia articles, you have online lectures and videos. These are like recordings of tier 1 conferences, workshops and seminars, and also MOOCs, online courses, which are there on top class places like Coursera, Udacity, Udemy, you name it, even in the Indian NPTEL. So we collect that as well. And then you have light reads, and these are magazine articles from hand-picked top-notch magazines like Nature, Scientific American, Science, or top-notch tech blogs from Google Research or Intel or UNESCO or UN or some other kind of UN lab or some other kind of pharma lab and so on. So all the different technical reports and blogs that are coming up, and that's also handpicked, right? So these are the light reads. So I'll talk about light reads and wiki and all these things later on, but let's first delve into the research articles. So let's say that you want to read more research articles that are related to this particular section which you're currently interested in, which is currently bothering you, sort of. So you can select it and you can click on research articles over here. And the moment you click on research articles, now Racks has a collection of 170 million, more than 170 billion research papers, and it digs through that and it brings out only those papers that are related to what you just selected. Okay, that's related to just what you just selected right now over here. Then what you can do is you can attach these papers like over here. As you can see, I'm attaching these papers which came out, right? If I want to read the abstract in more details, I can view more. I can read the abstract and then I can decide whether I want to attach it, as you can see. And the moment I'm attaching everyone, it gets attached as this orange section, as you can see over here, right? And if I think that I want to attach this, but at the same time, this is one paper that I want to add to my literature reading list, which means that I want to read it more. I'm convinced that it's not just a paper that I want to attach it with this particular section, but this is a paper that I want to also read in details. Then I would add it to my literature list. And the moment I add it to my literature list, it gets added over here, as you can see. This paper got added to my literature list over here, right? So that's how I can keep adding papers to my literature list while I'm reading a particular paper. And I can also attach it with that section. And why the attachment is important, because I start building a connection. And this is what I was discussing over here. Like, what is that connection of all the research materials or all the research articles that are out there with what I am currently doing? So I am currently reading this section, and these are all the research papers that are out there that are not in my reading list as of now. What I did was I just brought them inside my project, inside my reading list in this project, and attached to this particular section. Now the beauty of that is when I come back to this paper, I can just click on this orange section and I get back all the papers that are related to this orange section. So which means that now I also remember why exactly these papers are related, how exactly they are related to this paper, this section, right? It's not just dumping all the papers in one folder or bookmarking everything in one folder and then start forgetting why exactly did I even find this. What triggered me to discover these papers? I mean, this is the problem with discovery engines, or this is the problem with other kind of recommendation systems. There is no real connection with what you're currently doing with what's out there. This is the beauty of racks. This is where racks, you can actually use this particular feature by keep connecting what you're currently doing with all the other stuff that are out there, right? So that's another interesting thing that you can do inside racks. Sometimes what happens is you may want to quickly understand a particular concept, right? You don't want to, and for that, you don't really want to read another research paper to do that, right? Because reading a research paper and then understanding a concept is going to take a lot of time. I mean, because reading research papers themselves, is time consuming. So what you might want to do is you might want to, let's say this is a particular concept, LDA based topic modeling, and you just want to have a recap of this particular method or technique, or you might want to, this is for the first time you're seeing it and you have never seen this before and you just might want to figure out what this is all about. So what you can do, you can select this concept and you can have a quick understanding by going to other resources over here and clicking on that, and then you can click on Wikipedia. So every single article inside the Wikipedia, and we store the entire Wikipedia and we keep updating the entire Wikipedia. So now it's actually going through the entire Wikipedia and it's bringing you all those wiki articles that are conceptually related with this particular thing. And as you can see, this is not keyword based, because you see that the first one, okay, of course, I attached it, but if you look at the second one, it's actually, there's nothing keyword matching in terms of LDA based topic modeling versus concept mining, but it is actually the same, because LDA based topic modeling is actually used for concept mining. So you see that it could understand the meaning and the context of what you just selected. So nothing in racks is keyword based, by the way. So that's one thing that you need to understand. So it will be able to pull up all those articles that are very, very related to what you just selected, but may not have the same keywords. So like co-citation proximity analysis, because this is actually used, this can be used for this purpose. So you can also want to figure out, okay, let me just look into that as well, right? So now, once you do that again, you can come back to this topic, and you can also figure out, what were the things when you come back to this topic. You can just click on it, and you can get all these things. You may also want to figure out that, no, you know what, I want to go through some lectures, video lectures on this topic. So now I will just click on online lectures, and now I have all sorts of, like this one is a course from University of Washington. This is a course, online course on something which covered this particular topic, and I have attached it. This one was a lecture of an accepted paper in a conference, in a tier 1 conference, and this is again something that I might want to attach over here. And this is another conference lecture, and I might want to attach that over here, and so on. So as you can see, these are all lectures, and then I have, I can also keep loading more, and I can get more lectures or more, if there are online courses on this material, then I will get that also, right? And I can keep attaching that also. So I can then go over here, and now as you can see, I I have MOOCs as well attached uh, to this particular thing, right? And I can also go to for my general overall attachments, and I can actually look for only MOOC, or I can actually look for only wiki articles, or I can look for only the papers that I have attached, and so on. And I can do those filtering over here, right? So also it might very well happen that your library, so if the library actually does a sort of a collaboration with us, then what we can do is we can connect the library, and then uh, you can select certain sections of this paper. Let's say that I'm reading this section and I want to know, are there anything in the library, any book in the library or ebook in the library that is related to this section, so that I can book the book, I can reserve the book, and then I can read about that. So I can again go, and there is library resources. By default, it won't be seen, but if the library partners with us, then you will get to see this. And then you click on this, and then what happens is uh, you will get, as you can see, books related with this particular section. And again, you can attach them with this particular thing. You can also reserve it from here, and it will take you to that particular university's portal where you can actually reserve the book, right? Or you can later on reserve it also, and that's a good thing about why you should be attaching these books. You can also go for ebooks or other kind of materials that might be there in the library, and you can also keep attaching that as well, right? So that's one amazing thing. In some sense, what is happening is now the library has come to your now, has been connected to your present moment, what exactly you're currently focusing on, right? And that would be the time when you would be needing the most, when you will be remembering what you actually need from the library, or when you would want to actually go and explore the library while you are reading something very, very important, right? So that is the beauty of this entire thing, connecting library together, which is so very different than other kind of solutions that are out there, of library solutions that are out there. But anyway, so coming back to the point, now I'll show you. So as I kept saying that, understanding the paper is all about finding gaps, finding research gaps, because those research gaps are going to be your research opportunities, right? So you should never do this. First of all, as you can see, this guy is like, he's reading the abstract, he looks at the figure, he goes back and looks for more papers, does the same thing, and then he comes to that advisor and saying that, hey, you know what, I've read everything, and now don't worry, I'm going to add all these things to my reference list. No, that's really not a right way to do research, and you're never going to get good research outcome out of it, and your career is also you are never going to get a great career left from if you're not doing good research. That's for sure. So don't do this, okay? But also, this should not as well happen that that you're reading the entire paper all through the day, and and you take the entire day. This guy is reading everything, and then finally he realizes that he has spent the entire day reading that whole paper. And then later on, when somebody comes up, his lab mate comes and asks him, hey, so what is this paper about? And he cannot even remember the details. Of course, this is an exaggeration in that he was like, what was I even supposed to pay attention? So that's another thing. So don't do this, but don't do this either. So you should, both are two different extremes. So the point, the entire point of RACS is that we are trying to make literature analysis a wonderful journey. A literature analysis should not turn out to be a nightmare like what is happening over here, right? So it should not. Okay. So the very first thing when you are actually trying to read a paper is that you first need to understand whether you are really convinced about whether the problem statement or the research question of the paper that you're reading is significant enough or not. that convincement is very important, because that is kind of like the starting point of finding research gaps. And by the way, if you want more elaboration on specifically these topics, then you should, Ketu can share you with the YouTube links where we have actually discussed specifically on these topics. Last every Saturday we do that. Right now we are going to do that every Wednesday. So YouTube live. So today also, tonight we have a YouTube live. You can join us over there as well tonight at 9 p.m. So so that's the first thing that you need to do. You need to convince yourself that whether the problem is significant enough. The second thing that you need to do is you need to convince whether the problem is well formulated. But then you need to convince yourself whether the approach is sound and complete, and then you need to convince yourself whether the evaluation is sound and complete. And that, and now I'm going to show you how to do that inside Racks, right? How to do these three things inside Racks. How to get convinced about a problem, about an evaluation approach, and about an evaluation inside Racks. So what happens usually is that when, let's say that I'm reading, again, I'm taking this example, and I'm reading this paper right now. Okay, so this is one paper that I'm reading right now. And let's say that my very first question can be that whatever these authors are trying to claim, that this is a new thing and this is a new approach or this is the contribution, is that really a contribution or not, right? So that can be one very important thing that I might want to ask myself. So what I can do is I can over here, I don't select anything, okay? So right now what I do, I just go to over here, there is this panel called rig panel, and the first one is okay, I think my computer just hanged. Let us just wait for a few seconds before it comes back to normalcy. I think my computer just hanged.
Dr. Sourish, please close few tabs from the
Yeah,
browser window.
yeah. So I have a lot of tabs actually open up. So let me just I usually use something so that they kind of, yeah, I think now it should be working. Yeah, I think it should be working now. Extremely sorry about that. So that's how,
No problem, sir. It happen always.
yeah,
Something.
yeah,
No problem, sir.
yeah,
Yeah.
actually, so let me just keep closing.
Dear participants, Dr. Sourish will join within couple of seconds. No, please have patience.
Dear participants, sir is joining soon.
Respected Ayushi ma'am, in the meanwhile, you can take the questions from the participants in chat box if possible.
Yeah, you can write the question in the chat box. Dear participants, you can write the questions in the chat box.
Hello. Yes. Very sorry about that. So I think it should work right now. We are all fine. Let me just share my screen again. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem, sir.
All right. All right. So I was discussing about this thing that your very first question should be that are there other techniques that are related to this technique? You know, how similar, I mean, how original is this particular work? So one thing that you can do is you can click on this literature and you will get these related papers, and then over there is something called fine tune. So what you can do is you can click on fine tune, and over there you will see that there are two interesting things. One is similar problem statement and one is similar approach. You can click on similar approach and then put an apply, and then what will happen is now all the papers that use techniques that are related to the core techniques of this paper are going to pop up. So it's searching across all those 170 million papers out there right now. And then it will take a little bit of time, but then it will bring you only those papers that are related to the technique that has been used in this paper. And so that's, of course, sorry, maybe there was a timeout. Let me just try it again. This is the internet issue also probably that's bothering. So that's one thing. The second thing that you can do is you may want to also figure out what are all the different ways in which other researchers have tackled this particular problem statement or this research problem. Then what you should do, you should go over here and you should be choosing the similar research problem filter. So instead of similar research approach, right? So I'll show you both. I hope everything should work right now. Just refresh it. Maybe there was some issues with the reloading of the page. So so these are the two different ways in which you can figure out whether there is something out there that's closely related to these two papers or not. Yeah. I think there's some issues with this. So another way to figure it out is through this, that there is a key insights, which I showed before as well. And within the key insights, you can go to possible originality. Now, within the possible originality, you may want to select the particular core aspect, which is basically the originality of this paper. Select it, and then you can click on literature over here, which is the research papers. And then what happens is now you can also verify to what extent this is actually different, or to what extent this is actually original, and what are all the other techniques that are out there that are related to this particular section, but that are also trying to attack the same problem that this paper is trying to attack, right? So that's another sort of uh, uh, a thing that you can do. I think there are some issues going on with my receiving the results over here, but so that's another way in which you can. So essentially, it's kind of like to select and explore only, where you are selecting specific aspects of the paper, but without even having to read the paper. The problem with reading the paper and doing it is that you have to because if you look at the originality of the paper, it can be spread across multiple different pages. What Key Insights does is it collects all those things which have been spread across the entire paper, and it brings them together into the right section or the right place, right? Like originality. And then you can actually, it becomes very easy for you to figure out, okay, what's out there and what's not out there, right? So that's another thing that that you can do. One more thing that you can always figure out is you can always look into the references, and you can always figure out if there are references which are like the papers that have been cited by this paper, the paper that you are currently reading. So these would be all the references that are there down below. And if you think that some of these papers are related and these are the papers that you must read because they are quite closely related to what this paper is about, then you can add it to your literature list, and it gets added to the literature list right over here. So that's another sort of a thing. And so yes, so that's one aspect of racks. But the other aspect of racks is that when you are also doing drafts, and drafts means that whenever you're reading such papers, you might also suddenly feel that, hey, you know what, I am having these new ideas, right? So, and you can actually start creating new, while you are reading a particular paper. Let's say I'm reading this paper, and you might come up with new ideas, and you can start creating a draft like this, or you can open up a draft which you already have. Let's say gaps in research problem formulation, gaps in research approach, and all these sort of things. You can start creating that, and then what you can do is you can go to a particular draft, and you can start working on that particular draft. You can open multiple drafts together at the same time and keep switching from one draft to the other draft. And what you can do is, while you are working on the draft, you may also feel like, hey, you know what, I might want to search for more papers that are related to what I have just written, the new idea that I've read. So what you can do is, again, you can select this particular section, and then you can click on literature, and then all the papers that are related to this particular section would come up, right? So that's another interesting. Or maybe you can select the other something else, and again you can actually start looking for papers. If there are papers, then you will come up and look for these papers that are related to this particular section. So that's another way, and again you can attach them. And now the interesting part of this attachment is that every draft will have its own set of attachments, and that's how it becomes very easy for you to organize which drafts have what kind of references that you have attached, right? And the references may not just be research papers, it can be anything, all those things that was there for research papers also. So it's kind of like, it doesn't matter whether you're writing or whether you're reading, these stuffs will always be there for you, right? And by the way, just before I walk out of here, you can also mix up text with latex scripts inside this. It's pretty rich, this particular editor, right? The other thing that I would like to show you is collaboration, team collaboration. So now we have already entered part 2, and part 2 is essentially knowledge creation. So knowledge creation cannot just happen in solo. You will be working with your teammate, you will be working with your supervisor and other kind of colleagues and collaborators, right? So what you can do is while you are, let's say, I'll give you with and show you with an example where I'm actually doing that with one of my junior researchers at RACS. So this is a paper that we are currently reading together and critically examining together. So what you can do is you can actually form a virtual study circle, like a journal club. You can form a virtual club. Let's say I'm reading this paper. And what I can do is I can form my team by sharing. Click on the share button, as you can see. So every paper there's a share button. So I can click on share, and I can actually share it with my collaborators or with anybody whom I want to be make my collaborator for this particular project, right? And I can share that. Uh, once the sharing is done and once the invitation will go, and once it accepts the invitation, then I can actually see that, okay, so this is the paper and I'm actually discussing this paper with this particular person, and these are the activities that's happening around this particular paper. So activities are in this sense. So essentially, whenever I want to start let's say a discussion thread around this paper, I can actually select a particular section. And over here, you see that this is highlight, standard thing. This is note. This is your own personal note, which won't be visible to your teammates. Okay, so this is the personal notes. And this is the comments, this is the collaborative notes. Like this is where the discussion thread is happening, right? So these are the comments that you can make. So you can make a comment over here, and you can start writing a comment, and that comment can be seen by your collaborator, and your collaborator can actually give further comments, and there can be a nesting of comments. Like over here, I have some comments, as you can see, and I can keep writing, putting more comments and writing comments, and my collaborator can reply to this comment and so on. So that's one way of doing virtual, especially in this COVID situation and all, where you can actually do virtual journal club. While you are doing a literature review, you can do it collaboratively. Or what you can do is you can also have something like a critique template. Now, what happens in a critique template is that every paper that you upload, RACS automatically autofills some questions, which you can change, which your supervisor can change for you, and you can use it like a scaffold or a template. So as you can see, these questions are like, what are the main arguments, what are the premises or assumptions, what is the context or background, significance or implications of the arguments, any logical fallacy, what are the pros and cons of the method, is the approach consistent with respect to the assumptions, and so on and so forth, right? And finally, you can put some things yet to clarify and so on and so forth. What the good thing about this is that if you want to do, this is kind of gives you a very nice, you can also do some sort of like a split view, and you can read the paper, that particular section of the paper, and you can actually start putting your notes over here. And these notes may not have to be necessarily like a full-length text. It can be just bullet points. But the good thing about doing notes in this way, rather than the standard way in which you can actually put notes over here like this, you can always put notes like this over here. But rather than that, the good thing about putting notes over here is that you remember the context in which you're putting a note. Because a lot of times what happens, if you skip scribbling notes on the paper, and then later on, maybe a month later, you come back to the paper and you look at the scribbles, and you tend to forget exactly why did I even scribble this. But if you scribble it under the right research question, you would remember it. The other good thing is that if you scribble stuffs under the right research questions, it becomes very easy for your collaborators also to understand what exactly you want to mean over there, instead of scribbling it over here, right? It becomes very difficult for your collaborators or your supervisor to understand what exactly did you find, So that's another good thing. The third thing is that it's structured, and the structure itself helps you to even know at an early stage of your research, when you're very new to research, what should be the right questions that you should ask while you are critically examining a paper. And that questions can be set once and for all by your supervisor, so you know that, okay, this is how I should be even reading a paper. So how to read a paper properly, this kind of critic template helps you in doing that, right? And one more thing is, you can also do this critiquing as collectively as a group, like as you can see over here. Over here, there's a start new thread. You can start a new thread like this and put some comments, or you can reply like this, let's say I can reply like this, and you can go in like a threaded reply, as you can see over here. So essentially, all the discussions are now recorded. Everything is recorded, and your supervisor can take his or her time to look into what you have done for a particular paper, how you have dissected or analyzed the paper, and how you did everything. And you can actually have all the discussions recorded in one place, and you don't forget or you don't remember what were the exact issues that you found while you were reading a paper. The same thing you can do for drafts. When you are at the drafts, you can also share and start, you can share the draft, and you can start commenting, with your teammates. As you can see, I have already shared it with or rather my junior researcher has shared this thing with me. I can share, like for every single draft, I can start a share. Like over here, I can start a share, and I can share it with my collaborators, right? So that's, as you can see, I have 2 collaborators, so I can share it with my collaborators. So that's another way in which you can do a very, and one more thing before I forget is, if you think that you are writing something on Racks, which is of extremely high intellectual property, like your own ideas, then I would highly suggest you to put a timestamp, kind of like put a stamp of the Creative Commons license. So you can, over here, for every single draft, you can have your own license. You can put your own license, and you can click over here. You can choose the license, whichever you want. Every license, there is a layman way in which we have made it very clear to you what that license means. And if you want to know in more details what that license means, then you can actually click over here, and it will take you to the legal page in the legal way of what this license would be for Creative Commons. And you should check that out. I mean, the moment you feel that this is something that is your own original idea, then you should always do this so that you can protect your idea. Okay, so that would be how you should be working on. So now we have pretty much covered the literature analysis part, and how literature analysis is connected with drafts, and how this entire thing is connected with your team. Now, to talk a little bit more about the team, but before going to the team, maybe one thing that I would like to make you understand is there's something called repository. And repository is like anything and everything that is related to this particular research project. But then that's not papers, that's not your reading list, or that's not your own work. But then those can be like PPTs, or can be like code links, or can be like data sets, like spreadsheets or other kinds of data sets, or can be like web links, and so on and so forth. So you can add them over there, like, as you can see, I can see, so I have so many of them over here. And you can also put some tags which will help you to figure out which one is what. So what happens is, anything and everything that is outside Racks, you can actually bring the link and tie it up nicely inside Racks in one single place, which relates to this particular research project. Now, everything that you do in Racks, every 4 hours, Racks is looking at exactly what you are doing right now. Even a small little highlight that you are doing, even the discussion threads that are happening. And based on that, it will give you more papers that are related to what you are currently focusing on. what you're currently interested in, and not on the basis of, okay, what you have already done some 2 months ago, but you may not be even interested in right now, or a paper that you have already read and you are done with that paper, and then it's not going to do, it's not going to send you stuffs that are not useful to you right now. It's actually going to bring you stuffs that are useful to you, depending upon what exactly was your current point of attention as of now, your recent past, right? What you did just 4 hours earlier, what happened, and so on. What was the most recent thing that you did, right? At the smallest granular level. So that's the beauty of racks, and that helps us to be always staying connected with what's going on in the research community to what I am currently doing, because that matters the most, right? So finally, a little bit about the collaboration. This is just how you can maintain collaboration, and in a very secure way. And this is something also unique about racks. A lot of times people complain about that privacy versus collaboration, right? Because, let's say that I am your supervisor. I would like to have central authority of all the stuffs that are happening, of everything that you are doing as a student. But at the same time, and this is important for me, not because I just want to be the control freak over here, but because I have the responsibility to guard the intellectual property on behalf of my university. It's my legal responsibility to do that, right? So that's why I need to have full control, central authority. But at the same time, I don't want my literature list to be cluttered by all my 5 students. Let's say I have 5 students or 3 students, and everybody puts their own paper over here. And now I am totally confused because I don't know which paper is mine and which paper is somebody else's, and I have to now filter all the time. I don't want to do that. I only want to see things which I want to see, right? That's one thing. Or the drafts. I only want to see the drafts which I want to see. But at the same time, from a student's point of view, let's say you are a student, you are my student, you may not want to discuss something unnecessarily until and unless you're ready to discuss that. So you may want to work on something and you're not yet ready to discuss that with me. And why should I even be peeping into that and looking into that when you're not even ready to discuss? So we solve that problem. So the way we do that is this, that if I am a professor and if I am the admin, then I can, let's say that this person is my student. I can see his files, but I cannot open them if they are private. I can only see the metadata of what he is reading. I can also see the metadata of his drafts, but I cannot open it. I can only request it as from here, and if I really need it, then I can request an access, and then that access will come to me, right? If the student says, okay, yes, I would need it, I give you the access. At the same time, so that's a beautiful way in which my space is also not cluttered, but at the same time, the students can also maintain their privacy from here. And if I really need it, then I can request an access, and then that access will. I think somebody is having the mute unmuted, so there is a echo going on right now. I give you the access. At the same time,
please, Gurmeet, Manji, please mute yourself, sir.
Which my space is. Yeah, it's
Ma'am,
okay,
I muted you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay right now. The other problem, sorry about that. So the other problem that can happen is that I may revoke a student, or I might be revoked from a project. So I'll show you an example. So it might very well happen that I might be revoked from a project. Okay, and do I have something? Or I may leave a project. Let's say this was a project, and I left the project myself, which means that I have terminated that collaboration, and I just want to leave the project. Or I might be revoked by somebody, in, for lack of better words, let's say just I am kicked out of the project for whatever reason, right? So now it can be a problem in normal platforms like Google Drive and Box and Dropbox, because then what happens is that I'm done for, because I don't have access to my own contributions, my own IP. But in Rex, what happens is the moment something like that happens, I can actually click on this button and I can make a copy, and then I can keep on continuing with not just my own stuffs which I own, which I created, but I also have access to all the other stuffs where I contributed, like in a discussion thread or in whatever format I contributed. So I have access to them as well, and I can continue from there independently, separately, as a separate fork altogether, as a separate branch altogether. And I can bring in more collaborators over there as well. So nothing is lost. So that's what we mean by secure collaboration in terms of intellectual property. So that's never lost. So even if something bad happens from the student's perspective, from the supervisor's perspective, from the colleague's perspective, from the collaborator's perspective, no IP is lost, which can actually go really crazy and really bad if you're using, let's say, a platform like Box or Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that, right? So that's another beautiful thing about the protocol that we mentioned with racks. So that's another thing. And finally, before I would want to conclude, okay, so there's something called a mentee monitoring, maybe interesting for some professors over here, some faculties over here, and maybe also interesting for some students also, because a lot of times what happens is that the student is actually working really well, let's say reading papers, working on drafts, but the professor doesn't really get to know whether that is really happening or not, right? And maybe the student is right now busy with a lot of things, like a lot of research things, and not yet ready to discuss anything. But the professor may think, and it has happened to me, the professor may think that, well, nothing is really going on and there's no real work going on. So there is something called a dashboard, where the professor can actually add the mentees or the students, and the professor can individually look into the different activities of the student once the student accepts that invite. And the professor can now look into all different types of research activities, starting from the exploration activities to the writing progress, to the reading progress, and so on and so forth. By choosing different dates also, you can do that. And you can actually look into all these things and see what's going on, what kind of activity is going on, and whether there is something at all, at a very bird eye view, whether there's something at all that is happening. And if there is not something at all that is happening, if things are going cold, let's say these graphs are like cold, then what you can do is, as a professor, you can then sit down nicely with a cup of coffee, hopefully, and talk it out with your student and try to figure out what can go wrong, because there can be multiple things that can go wrong. And I personally feel that the supervisor has the responsibility, this is my personal opinion, to also figure out whether the emotional aspect of the student, of the PhD student or the research student, is also well maintained and well balanced. So that is extremely important. So whether that is happening or not. So that's another interesting thing. Finally, there's something just on the side, there's something called Discover. So there's this page called Discover. You can go over there. At the onset, it might look very similar to something like Google Scholar or other kind of search engine or discovery engine portal. But the beauty of this, where it is unique than other places, is that you can actually put this entire idea. Let's say I'm actually selecting this entire paragraph, let's say. Copy. You can put an entire idea over here and then search for the idea itself. So it's an idea searching platform. Discover is more of an idea search engine, right? Rather than a keyword engine. Because in Google Scholar or in other kind of publisher domain, discovery engine, what happens is that it will only take the first few characters and it will strip off the other characters. It doesn't really understand that the idea is the entire thing, spread across the entire thing, and it's not just the first few characters. And so it does it in a very dumb way, and it only picks up the keywords which are in the first few characters, within the first few characters. So that's one problem with these things. The other thing is that you can always get to see blogs and courses related to what you're currently doing. And something interesting that happens is that depending upon your research area, it also gives you other kind of related topics which you can explore. So it understands the meaning of your research area or even your search keyword. Let's say I type in, let's say for Institute Library, and let's say I type in wine, and I go for books on wine. And now what you can see, or maybe booze, let's see. Yeah, so as you can see, when I typed in booze, well, this is Gujarat, and I thought initially when I did this experiment, I thought that I wouldn't get any books in my own library. This is the library which is of my own university library. So I thought that I wouldn't get any book on booze, but I got something about the eat the sky, drink the ocean. So essentially something related, but this one is really, really related. Food and drink tourism. So as you can see that it could understand the meaning of the word booze, and it also gives me some other kind of stuffs. I don't know whether that's there, but well, I can also look in for acetone or something like that. And there's no book on acetone. Let's say aldehyde. I don't know, because this is a tech university, so you don't have anything on that. So anyway, but it also shows you that you see that amine, alkene, acetic acid, so it could hydroxyl group. So you can understand like what this would mean and so on and so forth. So right now we don't have anything because it's a purely tech university, so engineering university, so you don't have anything related to that. But you do have a lot of books on engineering topics. So that would be it. And if you want to see what are the new updates over here, so we will always keep you updated in terms of new updates. If you see this is blue, which means there is a new update. So very recently there is a new update, and you can click on the new update and you can actually look into what are all the new things that's going on. So anyway, this is something that I have to log in, I guess. But so here it is. And any questions? Maybe now it's a good time to go for some questions. So I'm not stopping my screen because I think a lot of questions I have to again go back to my screen to answer.
Sir, have you over with the presentation?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with this valuable session. I assure that the knowledge which you provide us today will help the audience for the betterment of their research work. So there is some question in the chat box, so I am going to ask those questions to you. The first question is, if I attach AI as a keyword related videos to one of the paper, do they get attached automatically to the other paper?
Can you repeat that question, Bird?
Yeah, if I attach AI as a keyword related videos to one of the paper, do they get attached automatically to the other paper?
Okay, so so what happens is okay. So let me walk you through. So let's say AI, or maybe this is one paper, and let's just say that I'm just taking an example. Instead of AI, I'm just taking, let's say, abstractive summarization, right? And when I select it, I will get more, and I click on research articles, I'll get more papers, right, which are related to abstract summarization. I'm just replacing this example with AI. Let's say AI, which is there. So let's say there was something called, instead of abstractive summarization, the keyword was AI. Now all the papers which are related to AI would come up, and I can keep attaching them, and it gets attached to that particular thing while I am reading a paper. So you see, Racks is all about what you are doing while you are reading the paper, right? You can also do something like this. Let's say you are in Google Scholar, okay, and let's say you type in artificial intelligence, or let's say you type in abstract text summarization, right, in Google Scholar. Now, what you can do is there is a Chrome plugin of Racks. You can get Ketul, if you can just share the if you can share the link of the Chrome plugin. There's a Chrome plugin of Racks. You can install the Chrome plugin, and then you can click on the Chrome plugin. And what happens after a few seconds? It is actually looking into all the PDFs that are there in this Google Scholar, and it gets the PDFs. And then what you can do is you can actually select the papers, and then you can put it as you can choose that particular project, and then you can add them as into that particular project as well. So you can do it from outside by picking these things, and you can also add it over there. Or what you can also do is, let's say that you can pick the PDF over here. As you can see, I can copy the PDF, and what I can do is I can come over here, and in my attachment sections, I can attach the reference as a custom URL, as you can see, or also as a file upload, and I can actually do that over here. And when I do it, now you see that it got it from ArcZiv. I can put some tags over here. Let's say abstractive summarizer. I can put some strats, abstractive summarization. Put some tag and put some remark if I want to, and I'm done. So now what happens is that that gets attached as well. So anything that is from the external source also got attached. So as you can see, external resources, I can also, this was a paper, so that's why it did not come up as an external resource, but this was a paper so it came up as a paper. So as you can see over here, this got attached, right? So this is something that's another very interesting thing about Racks, but then it is purely based on the basis of a specific paper. You're attaching things to a specific paper which you're currently reading. It doesn't get automatically attached to the other papers that you are currently reading. If you want to attach this paper with the other papers that are there in your collection, then what you should be doing is you should select this particular section, and okay, so you can select this particular section, let's say, and then what you can do is you can click on compare from your collection, and then what you can do is you can now keep connecting those papers which are in your collection, from your collection. You can keep connecting them to this particular section. So that's the way in which the papers get connected that way. So you can now actually get those papers interconnected also in that way. So that's another way of reaching. But you see why we did not do that, what you said, because one thing can be relevant to one paper in one context, but that may not. If I automatically connect that with some other paper, that you might actually get pissed off. You might get angry that why did it happen? Because I did not want this to be connected to the other paper, because it's a completely different context over there, right? So that's why it doesn't get automatically connected. Okay, yeah. Maybe the next question. I hope I answered the question properly. Any other
आयुषी मैम आपका माइक म्यूट है.
Sir, the next question is how we get Racks. It is downloaded. Is it downloaded?
No, it's an online platform. So as I said, like you just go to the home page. This is Rackster.io. You just type in Rackster.io. You can do it right now only, and
Okay.
you just sign up. Or you can just sign up only through your email. Just put your email and you're done.
Okay, sir. The next question is Rex's language independent?
At this moment, no. It primarily works on English. It doesn't get to understand non-English that well. It doesn't understand it that deeply. The understanding part is the real beauty of RACs. It doesn't get to understand a non-English text that well, right? Then for them, for non-English, it becomes pretty much like keyword. Okay, so that's the problem for non-English.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is there any option of font selection in racks?
Any option of
Font selection in racks?
what selection?
FONT, font selection, sir.
Font. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, what you can do is while you are writing your pretty, or while you're on your draft, let's say you are on your draft over here. So let's
And
say, so you see that you have different fonts over here, different font size, and if you want to and but in terms of Comic Sans and all the sort of fonts, that's not what we don't have that essentially, but we do have the basic stuffs that you would require for research writing purposes. But you don't have like changing into Roboto or something like that, or Comic Sans or Courier New or something like that. We don't have that, right? So but I don't know why you would be needing it, because if you are just writing, because you see drafts are primarily for putting your own ideas as new and new ideas come up, like and it's kind of like your working note. So I'm not sure why you would require that. You can always put italics, and you can always put like a color on top of it, like put color coding or highlighting and so on. You can always do that. Right? You can put images and videos and all this, and hyperlinks, quotes, code links, and so on.
sir, the next question is key insight is inbuilt feature, or we need to add important
Inbuilt.
points while
It's in
reading papers.
No, it's inbuilt. The moment you are, I'll show you with an example. The moment, let's say that you upload a paper, let's say you upload, let's say this paper, maybe this paper is already there. This paper is already there. I'll show you with very quickly with an example. Let's see, you upload. Let's say you upload this paper. Okay? So the moment you upload a paper, I'll show you how fast it happens. This is pretty big paper. It's not it's in 1 MB paper. It starts processing it, and after it title and the author, sometimes very few times it doesn't. It's not able to do that, as you can see. It got all the things extracted automatically, and then the key insights automatically comes in. So you see how much time it would take. See, done. So this is how fast it is.
So the next question is how much is the price? Is it free to download?
There is no downloading as such, as you can see. It's just like how you would use Facebook, but just to show you the pricing. So if you're a student, so this would be the annual subscription pricing, which is just $5 a month, deducted monthly. So you don't have to pay anything upfront. It's automatically deducted monthly. That's $5 a month, and you do have a 30-day free trial. And for Pro, it's $7.5 a month, and for for the premium, it's $10 a month. But I'll tell you something. If you really look into it, you'll see that you actually would end up spending at least 5 times more on your cup of chai every month. So if you just calculate it, if you're a chai or a coffee lover, I don't know, I spend a lot more on a cup of chai every month than I would, over here. So it's, in that way, it's pretty affordable. And if your university takes it out, then it's free for you. Then you are in the premium and it's absolutely free.
Okay, so one more question is there. How many objectives we have to maintain in synopsis if going for PhD?
How many
objectives we have to maintain in synopsis if we are going for PhD?
Okay, see, first of all, you need to understand that your research objectives or your research questions should be very well interconnected. It cannot be completely disjoint research objectives. So one should follow the other so that you can actually do a nice threading. Now, it also depends upon the objective itself. Like if it is something that was relatively very, very difficult to solve, then maybe one or even two objectives is good enough for your thesis. But if it is something that was difficult but not that difficult, then you might want to have at least 3 to 4 objectives tied up and nicely tied up, which means one should relate to the other objective to form a bigger objective, so to say. So that thing has to be there. It cannot be like apples and oranges. You're solving apples and then you're solving oranges and then you're trying to bring them together into one. That cannot be a very good thesis.
Okay, sir, thank you so much. Really, it's an enormous session with you, and we learned a lot from you. And I also extend my thanks to our participants for their cooperation. Thanks for joining us. And I request every participant to please switch on their cameras for the group picture. Please switch on their cameras.
Great to see you now, finally, all of you together.
Thank you so much, audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Sourish.
So there is one announcement for the tomorrow session that will be held at 11 a.m. by Miss Garima Turan. Okay, and take care and have a wonderful Wednesday, audience.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And if anybody wants to join tonight for our live YouTube live,